before I forget, Craig told me to tell you he loves you, so there we go.
I love him as well.
I enjoy playing telephone weekly with the Wolfley family.
Well, Max, it's our first time to get a chance to chat with you after what transpired with the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray. It's funny, the word expectations has been thrown around quite a bit, not only in the media where we sit, but also even to the Cardinals coaching staff. Jonathan Gannon was like, hey, listen, guys, I had no expectations, so I don't know if he exceeded them because I didn't know what to expect going in. So I'll put the question to you, Max Starks. Expectations going in, and what about coming out?
I think it's documented since I was in here last week talking about it. He exceeded the expectations of what I was expecting from him, right? I talked about this. Caution is key, right? I talked about how, get him into the game and, let's run the football, do what they've done, and then they drop back for 32 passes. Exceeding that expectation because I was expecting it to be in the 20-25 range.
Right.
Running the football, moving around, all those things matched what I was expecting. What I did not expect, 2-minute drill, Wolf. Things break down. He goes left, he goes right, and then he goes 13 yards down the field to get the first down. And you saw the desire, the edge, and the hunger, and you felt the desperation. And his spidey sense went up another degree. And you saw him really look comfortable in this new offense, which I thought was going to take 2 to 3 games. But given the opponent, given the circumstances, I thought he exceeded expectations.
So where do you think Kyler Murray and this offense can take the next step? What do you think they need to do in regard to it? Because I'm with you on this, Max. My expectations were not high. I did not expect to see a 4-3 out on the field. Yeah. And we saw the 4-3 out of the field.
Yeah, well, you saw top end stat, next gen stat said he ran over 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, almost 21 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean on a play. So, I think the next step is, of course, nuance, right? It's giving him a little bit more leeway as he gets comfortable. I'm not saying this is going to be this week or anything, to understand the audible system a little bit better, to get him some creative packages in game versus kind of being in that 2-minute drill, an actual package that allows him to really show off what he has learned in those years. That's the next step in the process.
Did you happen to notice the fact they got into 12 personnel and went up tempo?
Yeah.
That was a little bit different, right? 12
that
personnel
was new.
Went empty as well out of 12. That was really interesting to me.
And it just goes, and one of the other things I think we learned a lot, Trey McBride. We learned how devastating he can be to an opposing defense.
He's dangerous.
He is he because we hadn't really seen that, right? Because we had 2 other quarterbacks trying to run this offense, and it was more pedestrian with the tight end position, albeit whether it was Zach Ertz or whether it was Trey McBride. But Trey McBride became a weapon and became a go-to guy for a quarter. And I talked about this last week, how the tight end is always a quarterback security blanket.
Indeed.
But that was more than a security blanket. That was a shield and a sword.
That was right there.
Yeah.
I said this, Max, and I believed it, but I know you'll understand this too. When you had that breakout game in your heart and in your mind. When you first really had that game where you said to yourself, this is who I am, and this is how I've got to play. Now, it doesn't mean you always produced to that degree. Even though you made that vow in your heart, this is how I'm going to play from this point forward. I don't think we'll ever see the same Trey McBride again. Now, again, not from a production standpoint, but from a confidence standpoint, I don't think we'll ever see the Trey McBride from a year ago.
Well, I don't think you're going to see a timid guy. Like you'll see more self-assurance, confidence, and more vocalization from him, and more emoting of the emotions out there on the field, right? Because you now have that thirst, right? You always talk about that when you see a wild animal, a predator, right? The taste of first blood on that first kill. You can't escape it, right? When they talk about vampires and all that kind of stuff, like it's the thirst. That's a similar type of thing that you're going to get. And when you have that game, and I remember Chicago 2005 for me was that game. And you're like, no, I can do this. Not only do I belong, but I got a pretty good role. And I like my role. And I want to make sure my role is known at all times. And I want to enforce my role and my will on the opponent. I want you to know who I am when I line up across from you.
Yeah.
That's the confidence that breeds inside of all athletes when you have that moment of clarity and of sense of purpose. And Trey McBride had that moment. He had that. You could see a little twinkle in his eye.
I'm telling you.
It was a twinkle in his eye, a little smirkish grin off to the side. Yeah, he's ready to ball.
Cleveland, 1985. Thank you.
Yeah, there it is.
I want to go back to Kyler real quick, Max. Drew Petzing was on with Peter Schrager, NFL Network, and admitted that they threw the kitchen sink at him playbook-wise right in game one last Sunday. I know you can't say for sure, but we can certainly speculate. The fact that Kyler Murray was so ready to operate and orchestrate this offense, listen, his study habits have been much maligned.
I knew it was coming.
Does this speak to the fact that he did his work in the classroom and in the film room during the spring, during the summer, while he was rehabbing, that he was ready to go? It can't just be about the 12 days of practice leading up to that football game, that he was ready to have the kitchen sink thrown his way.
Yeah, so I was talking with, a Cardinals player, and, I'm not here to give full vindication by any stretch of the imagination, right? I'm not going home with him. I'm not also checking his Call of Duty habits or anything, or checking his screen time.
I get it.
Like everybody else was talking about.
Yep.
But, yes, this would be retribution for Kyler, the fact that he was prepared. And it started back when Drew Petzing got here.
Yep.
And it started back with Jonathan Gannon setting the culture and the standards that's applicable. And Kyler being there at all the games, being at all the practices, at all the meetings, you get a different sense when you got to grow up and put the big boy pants on. And I thought he answered that call, and it showed in the way that he executed this offense his first game out.
I thought it did too. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
There you go. Looked like you were ready for it too.